Good evening, good afternoon. My name is Tatiana Kovan, and this is podcast Happy at Work. And today we will discuss how to attract and retain talents in IT industry. Today we have guests from different regions, different countries, and from different experience, which led us to talk about IT recruitment and employer branding from a different perspective. This is Cameron Moore and Farron Zelli. Hi, Cameron.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? From where am I at now? Oh, New York. It's morning time, so we're good.
Cameron, can you tell a little bit about you and your professional experience for our audience, which led them to know more about you and about your experience, and I hope in the future to follow you on LinkedIn at least.
Yeah, so my name is Cameron Moore, a longtime listener, sometimes caller, and I live in New York right now, particularly in Brooklyn. I work at Snapchat. I've worked at a bunch of different companies in the last. I'm originally a creative, so I started. My undergrad degree was in animation illustration, so I've been doing a lot of creative stuff for a very long time, and I got more into marketing within the last like 15 years or so. And so I started purely as more of on social media. So I was working for larger companies like Viacom, Marvel, and other companies doing social media. And then that kind of led me into more recruitment marketing and employer brand, which I've been doing for about 7 years now. And so it's been a nice little interesting journey, but it's also been kind of fun because I think for me, employer brand, I'm able to use a lot of my different creative talents into one place. So that's a little bit of art, a little bit of design, some marketing, some strategy. Plus, if you haven't noticed, I like to talk a lot, so it adds to my communication as well. So it works out really well.
Um, Thanks, Cameron. And our second guest is Ferenc Zelli. Hi, Ferenc. Can you make a short introduction about your professional background?
Well, first thing first, thank you for having me. My name is Ferenc Sali. It's a Hungarian name, and I don't expect anyone to be able to pronounce it, so it's Ferry for short. I live in the Netherlands for the last 11 years, and this is approximately how long I've been leading people. I'm an engineer by trade and leader by profession, and I've always been very interested in building the best teams. I've been global hiring manager for a larger company. I led the recruitment efforts in a startup, and currently acting as a hiring manager for my organization. Very excited to talk about this topic.
Thanks a lot. And I think you could start. We prepared some questions with Natalia for you. And the first question is about challenges. What the great challenges your organization meet when you're attracting IT talents? And maybe on the different market, maybe on the particular market. Also interesting if, especially you are working in different countries, it's interesting to know what main challenges do you meet.
Yeah, I can go. I think the main challenge is in general, when we're a global company as well, so we're hiring in APAC and EMEA as well as North America. But I think also it's kind of the similar challenges that everyone has, right? We have your compensation, you have your locations, you have different types of situations, and so you on top of just money is which is very important to live. But you also have things like rewarding work, impactful work. Do you want to be a large cog in a small cog in a large machine, or do you want to work at a smaller place that you might have more impact? So a lot of times it's really convincing and trying to get to what the talents actually made up main motivational goals, because you can throw as much money as you want in somebody, but if they're bored or they're not happy or they're not enjoying their work, they'll probably just go somewhere else. So I think a lot of the challenges kind of stem from a compensation part. That's part one, but then part two is the actual impact and meaningful of their actual work, and that can differ between different global regions, especially when people have different motivations.
Yeah, I can only subscribe to this. I agree with Cameron. There are maybe two other factors that is kind of new in the market, and one is the remote or in office working conditions. This has been quite a divider, I would say, or a filter for many of the candidates. And the second one is how fast local markets became global markets. So whenever you find like this hotspot of talent and you're very excited about creating your second, first, third site, and then suddenly everyone is there, and then your market became a lot more competitive, and you became from a local market to a global market.
100%. And I think also too, it's like, for instance, with Snapchat, we are not super small, but we are not super big. And so we're not the Googles and the Metas and all of that, but at the same time, we're not the really small startup. So in that middle ground and being able to show what an actual talent can have impact at a company at our size is always something that we have to harp on and to show them that, like, hey, you can come here, make a meaningful impact, or you can go somewhere else and be in like I said, a little tadpole in a huge ocean.
Mhm. Natalia, you are a co-host, but you are also a recruitment professional. Maybe you could add something. What challenges does your company have when you try to attract IT talents globally?
Here a little bit agree with Cameron that it's really different from region to region, and actually that was my next question is about like different strategies in different regions. How do you adapt your global hiring strategy to each region? To do any research there, or it's just by your experience?
It's really interesting question.
Yeah, it's actually more about partnering with our local recruiters on the ground there. So say for instance, we have a couple offices in China, and so we're a shop that uses LinkedIn like a lot of everyone else, but in China, LinkedIn's not really that popular. People still use it, but it's not like the main driver of finding a place. So you have to be a little bit more creative about using the local things there, like WeChat or RedNote or those aspects of it. So it's more of adapting the strategies to the local aspects of it, but then also reinforcing what you're already doing. So North America, LinkedIn is pretty much where you're going to be finding a lot of the jobs. But if we're in, say, Vienna, or if we're going to be up in London or something like that, it might be a different type. So understanding the connecting and understanding what those different types of avenues can be, that's how we've been kind of adapting it. And then also just showing that, like, hey, you might be in a different country, but there's commonalities in all the things that we do, whether our values are pretty much the same, how we approach our work, and that same reinforcing that we really harp on the impact of things, right? You can come here, you have an idea, you'll be able to see that idea from the beginning all the way to the end. And a lot of companies aren't going to be able to do that. And that's a global thing for all of our positions and a lot of our hiring in all the different types of regions.
Yeah.
Parents, could you add anything about your approach?
Yes. So three things that comes to mind. One is, especially in smaller markets, word of mouth goes a very, very long way. So it's not only about branding, but also about your Glassdoor, which actually leads to the second one, and that is boomerang employees. We really saw many people coming back to TomTom after a couple of years of service elsewhere, which then also creates like this word of mouth, this local hotspots per se in the companies that they went in. And the third one is local branding. So of course, we will smaller companies never be able to be a competitor in FANG in terms of branding, but in the local market, being known as a good employer with good challenges, proper compensation, proper work-life balance. Basically, you attract talent without going out of your way.
Mhm. And also, could I ask you about how to work with international team, with diverse team? What the challenges you meet when, for example, you start to work with a team where people from different regions or absolutely different people, and how you build your culture, how you attract the different talents, and how you integrate them as a part of one big team. Could you share your experience? Because I think it's also interesting for international talents, how to become the international experts, how to become a part of big companies. And this is a little bit different if you work only on a local market or only with a team in one particular region, in one particular country. Could you share your point of view, and maybe what do your company do for helping international talents, not only in interaction, but also in becoming more effective? In what
Yeah,
way?
I think that's been the most interesting thing for me specifically in the last couple of years because I've been doing a lot more stuff in APAC and EMEA. And I think one of the things that has helped me is really understanding our TA people there and having and kind of talking to them about like, where are you looking for jobs when you're looking for a job in whatever place that you're at. Well, going back to what Frederick was saying was the about word of mouth and that own core network is definitely very important. But then also being like, okay, so if I'm in China and I'm looking for a job, yeah, I'll be on WeChat and I'll be at, in on WeChat. A lot of companies have their own almost HR channel where they put in, information about the company, jobs that are coming in. So if you're in North America and you don't have WeChat, you would have no idea how that would work. So luckily, I was able to go to China on my own, independent of work, but I got to experience WeChat, one of the coolest apps I've ever used in my entire life. But I also understand why it's not going to be it would never be in North America. But it gave me a lot more understanding of actually how people would search for jobs and that kind of thing. Because in, say, North America, when we're looking for jobs, we're pretty much on all the apps, the LinkedIn's and built-in Glassdoors and that kind of stuff. But when we overseas, and we're in different countries, whether it's Australia, whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's in London, different places are going to do that. And so one of the things that we highlight is to make sure that we work with our local offices there and have in-person events, things like that. We have, and then that way we can make sure that we're more authentic in that space. Because if I'm an American, I'm from California, I live in New York, what do I know about Viennese culture? Not much. But if I know I have 3 or 4 colleagues that are there, they can inform to me like, hey, this is how things would work and this is how people approach these things. Then I can use my ideas and adapt it for the local culture. And so really understanding and really having people on the ground at those places helps me as a more of a global brand person to be like, okay, I know what I know, but now teaming with people that are already there helps me adapt my cool idea, but for a place could be in any region. And that's kind of like usually how I approach it.
Mm-hmm. Lawrence, could you add anything? Especially you're as a person, as I understand, to change the country, who live your original country and have your own experience, and I hope also what you have maybe some experience with for your team.
Yeah, I actually interpreted the question a little bit differently, and that is, once the person joins the company, what do we do? Maybe that's also interesting. Or how do we make sure that we are able to attract talent? And there are many talks about diversity, inclusion. Diversity is very, very important when you build a global product, right? Without local intelligence, without, as Cameron said, without knowing what's on the ground, you won't be able to successfully create a good product. And that is selling point number one, right? You are able to produce value or create value that is relevant to you, relevant to the people around you, your culture, your nation. And that's already, I think, quite a strong motivator for many engineers. The second one is to be exposed to global talent, right? When you try to do best in class or try to elevate within the ranks, being exposed to people all around the world with different thinking, different level of expertise and craft, that just speaks for itself. But you also mentioned how do we retain culture? And we retain it by being explicit about it and being 24/7 living it. So the culture that is plastered on the wall but not lived within those walls will be eaten by everyday interactions. So it's very important to be explicit about the values, about the choices and preferences that you make, and tie it into each and every conversation. And that I think evens out the field where everybody can bring their own identity, their own maybe national or cultural inheritance, but still deviate towards a standard or a standard way of working. And that does attract talent because it's calming. You can be yourself, you can express yourself, and be part of something great.
Thanks. It's very interesting what we have different opinion on different topic for one questions for discussion. Natalia, could you add anything?
Yeah. I just wanted to add some points that even before candidate joined the company, we see a lot of cases when like hiring managers, the one who is interviewing the candidates, actually need to adapt their speech and even their assessment criteria to a particular region. Because, for example, let's say in America, they are good in selling themselves. So you expect them to be open and sell themselves. So, and in the other regions, like, let's say, for example, Arabic region, that's not that culture. They could be more like silent and not presenting themselves, and could get like less grades comparing to the other candidates. And also, like the things that we sell someone from America is totally different. The things like motivational points that we could sell to other people in different regions. So this is, I think, a really important point that company have to bear in mind. Even we've done a lot of trainings for hiring managers on how to interview particular people from different regions, because you cannot just come and do the same with the same culture, same countries. That's different. Even sometimes it's not ethical to say something or to ask something during the interview. So that's my point.
Yeah, agreed. And also too, the as we're starting to interview more people that are in Gen Z and people that are older millennials, or I should say younger millennials, older Gen Z, whatever that little thing is. So you're starting to see more that their values are going to be a little bit different than someone that's 5 years older than them, 10 years older than them, or even 15 years older than them. And so those adaptation, being adaptable to that is also interesting, because it's more than just knowing the slang and understanding those things and those the typical trends, but also understanding that their motivations are just slightly different. They all have the same kind of core motivations that we all have, but then say, for instance, they might over-index on things like mental health or community and those types of things, where people that are a little bit older, they value those things, but they also have other things that to them is more important. So really being adaptable and understanding. So there's so many different layers of that, because, we can say Gen Z, but Gen Z in North America is a lot different than somewhere else in Europe or in Asia and all that. So it really is important to be adaptable, but then also utilizing your talent on the ground in those areas.
Mhm. It's I remember what usually a lot of IT professionals like humor, but we could see what, for example, for different generation and for people from a different region, you have different memes, and you couldn't use one approach, especially, for example, in employer branding for all regions, or maybe for the whole team. I have one more question. This question is about employer branding. Now we see from one side what the IT companies are very popular as employers, and a lot of people in different regions like to work in IT companies from one side. From another side, we have a really strong competition, not only between IT companies, but for example, with fintech companies, with companies who also work in different industries, but now they have a digitalization process, so we try to attract more and more IT talents. And my next questions for you: what great challenges does your company meet when we talk about employer brand? Maybe this year, maybe also you could expect something in the next year for you from the employer brand perspective and from the competition for IT talents.
Yeah, I think for us specifically in employer brand and myself, is one of the biggest things I want to make sure is, acknowledging what's already there, right? We're in technology, we're a global brand. We over-index on male and usually male talent, but everyone that's not that, there's a lot of cool people there doing cool things. And so we want to make sure that we highlight and really show that there is a diverse level of talent, but also not using it as a token kind of a thing. And so we have a lot of women that are in positions that are doing some interesting things, making very diverse hires and those type of things, but also just being acknowledgeable. Like, yeah, we are a tech company. There are a lot of men. And there are, versions of that, but the people that aren't that are also doing some really interesting things. So a lot of it really is just highlighting what is there and doing it in a way that's authentic. It's not tokenism. And I think that's the main thing where, say, for instance, since employer brand is a lot more of the top of the funnel, if I'm looking for a job, I'm going to look at all these things. I'm going to look at the career site, I'm going to look at LinkedIn, built-in, Indeed. I'm going to talk to my friends, and so that employer brand can touch all those places. And you want that consistency everywhere, but you also want it to be in a way that makes sense for someone that wants to work there. So if I'm on Blind and I've heard a bad thing about my company, but I see other people defending the company. Oh, okay. So now there's a little bit different back and forth. It's not just working here is horrible. I don't want to be here, blah, 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 blah. It's, oh, one person's experience is this, one person's experience is that. And by keeping things like that, I'm not the biggest fan of Blind, but I also see the utility of it because I think sometimes you need a space for employees to be able to talk about their companies in both ways, positive or negative. So employer branding on top of it, at the very least, it really is just storytelling and telling people stories. But on a larger scale, it's making sure that that story is consistent and authentic in a way that's like, hey, these are the things, these are our challenges. This is what we're looking for. The people that work here actually enjoy working here, and this is to them talking about it. But also too, we have things that are challenges as well. So say, for instance, we are in the office 4 days a week. So that's different for a lot of people that come in, because there's a lot of places now that are either hybrid or remote. So we have to tell that story about how that's actually positively impacting our employees and our team members, but also saying that, hey, that's a rule that we're all buying into, and this is our experience with that. So for a lot of times, like I said, for employer brand, it really just comes back down to storytelling and really being able to tell that consistent story in all these different touch points.
Thanks a lot, Terence. Could you add something about your ideas about challenges in employer branding, and do it important or not invest in employer brand?
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for Cameron and the craft he has, because it's just very, very hard. When I joined TomTom, actually, I didn't know much, and I was very positively surprised about how good of an engineering culture there is, how disciplined, and it's just very hard to show it outside. One principle that we follow is, of course, do everything as if it were plastered on the front page. So the best employer branding is to be a good employer, and then it really carries. The other one is be relevant where it matters. Otherwise, employer branding can be an infinite money pit. You can throw a lot of money into position your company this way or another, but it will be just the cacophony will eat your message, instead of really finding out those workshops, those events where being there and be a thought leader, be a keynote speaker, or just show up with your latest innovation and approach people to make sure that they can ask and witness is a very effective strategy. And the other one is, of course, start early. So investing into internships, into university appearances, expose the young talent to the tech that you are building, and then it will stay with them. And then they start networking. As Cameron mentioned, the younger generation is a lot more about networking, about social, and even one good word can carry really far. But it's very, very important to be true. So don't paint a picture about yourself that you are not. If, as you said, if you are 4 days in a week, then say that you are that company. You're not a hybrid or remote or we'll figure it out. No, you walk the walk.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like with the younger folks, one of the things that internally from a Snap perspective, there is a lot of involvement with our team members with a lot of extracurricular activities in the company. So we have a big philanthropy arm. We have a really robust university and student program as well. And so a lot of people get involved in those things because our university team, they'll have these panels and they'll ask, people from the teams like, hey, would you want to, speak to a bunch of students, whether it's high school or college, share your experiences and that kind of stuff. And I actually appreciate that a lot, because a lot of interesting and mix of people from different departments usually volunteer. And so the students always have really interesting questions that we wouldn't have thought of. But then also it's cool that they actually put that they'll ask really poignant questions, right? Talk about AI. They'll ask about, hey, you're in tech. Do you fear for your job because tech goes up and down? How does stock work? If like I have a lot of stock now and then the stock goes down, am I broke? And like those types of things. And so one of the things that we make sure is just like, just from an internal aspect, the interesting part I would say for Snap is on LinkedIn is a great example where in a positive way. Hey, I was with my coworkers, we did this thing for we volunteered, or I made a lens on it with other folks, and then building a community. So there's a lot of good, interesting ways where people are doing it organically, and then from an employer standpoint is like taking that organic stuff and then blasting it to everyone else, because there's a lot of cool things that people do at Snap that don't get a spotlight. And so a lot of times that's one of the things I try to help out, where it's like, oh, this is really cool. Everyone should know this about. And so making sure we don't step on any toes, but also just really reinforce that people that work here actually enjoy working here and they talk about it on their own. And so we just like amplify that message.
Maybe to add to it, there is a nice balancing act, especially for companies in the Netherlands where I mainly worked on, that the culture itself, as you said, Natalia, it's different for people, but it's also different for the companies, right? And this bragging versus let my results speak for myself. Yeah, you can't be too far in the background. You have to put yourself out there, but in a light that is not, I don't know, overly tooting your own horn.
Yeah, I also have something to add to this discussion. So what I see during my recruitment career, that many companies, their mistake is that they are considering recruitment process, hiring process as a procurement. Like, for example, I need to hire like 100 people. I go to the market, I just buy them. You know, this is the budget, those are the people. So let's go and buy. And nothing is working because actually we know all that it is sales and marketing process, and you have to build your all recruitment process as like PR plus marketing plus sales, actually, because many companies, they are like focusing on branding and marketing and PR stories, etc. And they do really good funnel of candidates. But when those funnels of candidates, like speaking to their recruiters, speaking to their technical interviewers, or like even project managers or hiring managers, they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Because they sometimes don't even think that they have to like sell position, like promote themselves as a hiring manager. No, like they think that everybody wants to work with us. Everybody who came to the interview, they want to work with us. So especially that is the case for the senior candidates, which usually have like 5 to 8 offers in hand when they are coming to the company. They are really choosing, and our strategy should be like not just general strategy why they are good, but how we different from our competitors for the candidates. And these are the messages that hiring managers should push to the candidates that they want to hire. So, and my question here was like more about hiring like senior candidates. Do you have any strategies how to attract really top level? And I understand that your companies and you are competing for the like top for elite. And for those senior candidates, you have huge competition on the market, and hiring the best from this talent pool means a lot for the company. So, and we know that here sometimes like general branding strategy is not working. It's like targeted sometimes VIP sales when you're calling yourself and talking to people them and working with objections, like you tell, like if they have any from the market, like myths, gossip. So
Yeah, I think from the aspect of more executive talent, that's like a very niche area, and I think that the people that do recruitment for that is very, very interesting. But I think, on a whole, it's a lot more about presenting the challenge for them, because if I'm at a certain level and I've been in the business for 20 plus years, why am I coming out of retirement to work here? Why am I giving up, family time to come here? Why am I giving up a place that I've been at for a long time to come here? And a lot of times what I've found and I've seen is more about the challenges and the interesting problems that they get to solve. And I think a lot of that, on top of, no, we always go back compensation and those aspects of it. But I think there's a interesting uh, problem to solve that kind of hooks them in, and then it kind of goes from there. And I think, executive recruiting is a whole another thing that I'm starting to get a better understanding of. But from a marketing standpoint, a lot of that is that, like, what is the problem that you guys want to try to solve, or are we having? And so, and it might not even be a big problem. It might just be something that's a challenge. And I think, and that's challenge and as a positive way, not negative. And just like, okay, we're having a really big challenge with this portion of our business, and we think this leader might be able to help solve it with whether it's innovative ideas, whether it's previous experience, and those types of things. And so I think from the executive side, it really comes back down to like, oh, okay, what problem are you guys having? What's the challenges? And then like, how much wiggle room do I have to kind of get that solution? And I think for folks on an executive level, those are way more interesting than like I can go get, a lot of money somewhere else, but I want to come somewhere smaller where now I can really affect a lot of change and impact. And I think that's how a lot of times, especially for our place that we're in that middle where we're not the FANG group, but we're definitely not a startup. And so we're right in the middle. So now we have different challenges than other places will have. So going back to what I said before, you can be a small cog in a big machine, or you can kind of come in and be like, oh, wow, there's some interesting challenges here. This is something that's kept keeping my attention. I personally, if I get bored at somewhere, I have to leave. Just that's my thing. I'm not a coaster person. It's not my personality. But at the same time, if I'm somewhere and there's like tons of things like, oh, this is a mess in a good way, then I'm kind of like, okay, now let me roll my sleeves up. Let me get into it and let me figure out how it can keeps my attention. And so that keeps my creative ADD at bay, where I'm like, oh, there's so much things I can work on and help and affect and try to do things and solutions to try. And so that for myself keeps my attention. But I started to see now for a lot of execs that have been there and done that, it's more about, okay, why would I come here? Oh, this is your challenges. That looks like something that I want to tackle and I want to put my time into.
Being in both end of the executive hiring funnel, I think 4 things that really resonate with candidate. And Cameron I couldn't have said it better than Cameron did. The challenge, right? Be crisp about it. Make it something worth tackling. The second one is the credibility of the C-suite. If you're really exposed to them, and if you can't buy into their vision, their way of thinking, not going to work out. The third one is exposure to talent pool. So many people get really excited about the people that they work with. Maybe they feel really at home or really out of their comfort zone. Both can be really attractive, but ultimately, as an executive, you don't build alone. And knowing your team, knowing what you sign up for is definitely a must. And lastly, maybe it's more personal to me, but I found it in other candidates as well, is the ability to learn. Doing N+1 time the same circus that you did is a lot less attractive than learning something new, moving out of the comfort zone. Very, very important.
Because
totally agree.
Because we have a live stream, I checked the questions from our audience, and we have questions for you from Zurich. And a question, what is approach for sourcing and recruitment globally differ for your companies from in our industries, for example, like pharma or FMCG, or what type of difference do you see? And what are the most factors which define the success of your recruitment and employer branding for your companies?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I know what I was saying a little bit before is about that adaptability. And I think that, our core values and our messages are pretty much the same. It doesn't matter where it is and just different languages, but also adapting that to cater to different personalities and different viewpoints. And so like I talk a lot and I have a lot of cool ideas, but I also have gotten better at learning to say that cool idea in 5 different egos. And by doing that, that allows me to adapt it so that the person can still hear what I'm trying to say and I can kind of get my message across. And then taking that same type of point within employer branding, it's kind of the same thing where it's like, if I want to really showcase something that's going on in North America, I want to kind of do the same similar type of thing in a European country, but I want to cater it to those things. And so a lot of it is a lot of adaptability, a lot of metamorphing into those different areas.
Maybe another aspect that can be interesting when you talk about how to apply different strategies across either regions or fields is how soon you get into the position that you have to hire a unicorn. So it depends on expertise. You might have to really rethink what is the talent and what is the team that you want to build, because ultimately you are building a team, and hiring one person that has to do everything is not a recipe for success. And if really are looking for talent in a niche world, I'm myself leading search, which is a very, very niche within IT. Finding the right talent is not always finding the talent that checks all the boxes, but rather who fits the best with the current need of the organization. And you have to be really, really aware of what is available in the market.
Yeah, definitely. And also it's like one of the things I've been learning too is, just because it's a cool idea doesn't mean it actually helps the business. And so I have a lot of cool ideas, but then I'm like, okay, this is a cool idea, but is that going to help us get to our business goals and to our recruitment needs? And if it is, cool. But if it isn't, maybe table it for a little bit later and adapt it for something later on.
Thanks a lot. I have one questions. We started to discuss it some minutes ago, but I want to go deeper. My question is about candidate experience. We have here a person who worked from a recruitment perspective as a hiring manager and is expert in employer branding. What do you think? What are the most important thing for making the huge candidate experience? Because it's very important for making our promise, which we usually give when we talk about employer branding, really alive. This is a great challenge to make it alive during the hiring process. And how could they implement a strategy which help us to really attract talent during the hiring process? And what is the best way to connect with three sides: the people who are responsible for employer branding and attracting, the people who are responsible for recruitment day by day, and people who are responsible as a hiring manager who really need this person in their team. So this is my questions from you, maybe from a different perspective, maybe some ideas, proposals.
Oh, you gave me all the easy ones. So I would say the most interesting thing about it is the partnership between all three levels. So if you have employer brand, you have your recruiter, you have your hiring manager, and so there has to be alignment with all three in terms of how they approach things. I personally have an ungodly amount of Snapchat knowledge for my age, which is really weird. But I help my recruitment marketers understand that, or recruiters understand that as well. So when people have these questions about what's going on with the brand, what's going on with our stock prices, what's going on with how the culture is, they know what I know, so that makes it easier for them. Then coming to the hiring managers, it's more about the needs of like their specific roles. And so like just having alignment with all three helps from the first aspect of it. Now in the second part, it goes to your how the actual company internally is working. And so a lot of people, where they go, they'll go to Blind, they'll go to levels.fyi to see what people are talking about the company themselves. And so we have to kind of monitor all these things to make sure at each level, our recruiters and our hiring managers have this information. So when someone says, oh, I heard on Blind that XYZ happened, and the person was like, oh yeah, I totally heard about that too, it's not true, or this is the story behind it. So having alignment with all three of the areas so that when people have these questions, everyone can answer it in a way that's authentic but also truthful is better, and you're not really taken off guard. But that's the job from the employer brand start, to make sure that everyone knows these types of things. Because as much as I bring up Blind, I personally don't like Blind, but I understand how important it is to people to have a better sense of what the company is doing and how people talk about it. And so by arming our recruiters and our hiring managers about what people are talking about, it makes it easier for them to have that conversation. And so from an employer brand standpoint, I'm kind of like, hey guys, this is what the streets are talking about. And I want you guys to know that, so you're never caught off guard when people are asking you these questions.
Thanks, Cameron. Harry, could you add?
When devising these recruitment funnels or strategies, I found that it is very important to, if you have a standardized funnel, which I think at some point every company will gravitate towards, make sure that you build in a mechanism where this is not chiseled in stone, but you keep learning and keep healing. You get the feedback and you keep some sort of flexibility while still have this standardization. Why standardization is important is because of fairness. You want to make sure that the right candidates get there for the right reason. The second one is keep it humane and optimize for feedback. And that is, if someone gets rejected, because that's majority of the candidates, right? They should have timely information, clear information, and usable information. So ultimately, what we want is everybody to profit from this. And even if they don't necessarily get into the company, but if they leave with a positive mindset, then they will try again next time when they maybe have more experience or better fit, you name it. And the third one is, might sound stupid, but keep it fun. So as a hiring manager, I was in interviews where after the first 5 minutes, it was a clear no. But it doesn't mean that you close the call. Then you probably lower the bar a little bit, make sure that the person is able to answer the questions. You are curious about their mindset. You maybe feed them some pointers about what you are looking for, what is the level. And yes, it might be a no in the end, but it's still a positive experience. It's because they might have friends, or they may be interested in 3 years, or just because they are people and you want to treat them right.
Definitely agree. And also, I mean, for us, like all companies now, everyone's getting inundated with applications, and some get rejected automatically, some get through a certain process and not. But one of those things that we do is we have a process of like warm leads and cold leads as well. So, we'll have a bunch of applications, and maybe, however many of those people are, and they haven't been talked to in maybe like 6 months. So we'll go back and like, in people will be like, okay, this is a group of folks that are interested in a very specific role, whether, or maybe broad role. Hey, they're engineers and we haven't talked to them in over 6 months or longer. So let's send them something that's like, hey, this is what Snap's been up to. These are the things that's positive in our in the news, and these are the products that we're working on right now. So it kind of just keeps things top of mind, because even if it's a no now, it always come back, like Fenix said earlier, that it can always come back as well. And so I've had that experience as well. Specifically at Snap, I got rejected for 2 of the other departments, and then the way I got my job was I was a freelancer filling for maternity leave. And then now that I'm here full time, I've been here for 4 years, but I've worked with people in those departments now. They're like, you should totally be on our team. I was like, well, actually. um, but they just started laughing, and I was like, yeah, man, we all know that, for one role that opens up, sometimes you'll get 1,000 applications. And in that 1,000, you might only be able to go through half of them, but there might be someone in there that is good for something else. And so having a mechanism to make sure that you have, just because someone submits one application, last year, they might be better for a role later on this year or something to that effect, and keeping that funnel and really being and optimize that so that you always are using, because you're always going to have these touch points for all these people. And you want to definitely just, once a quarter, once every 2 quarters, on some, just like, hey, we're still around. There's still positions open, specifically in the field that you were looking for last time. Maybe something opens up, and maybe you're a candidate for that now.
Could I add something? When first time met research of company Talent Bird, this company is focused on area of candidate experience, and it was very interesting what the person who were treated appropriate way during the interview process. It doesn't depend on the result. Whether they hired or not, this person became a promoter of the company, promoter of the product of the company, promoter as the company as an employer. If we have great candidate experience, and I think it's what we discussed. It's important from not only from the HR perspective, but also from a brand perspective. Because some of people who now are your candidates, the next step for them, maybe they could be your clients also. Natalia, what could you add from your?
Yeah, I have something to add here, because I'm 100% agree with Cameron, Peri, and you, Tatiana, because we are telling that to all our clients and the team, that each and every candidate that went through your hiring process, regardless you hired him or you said no, becomes your ambassador, and he becomes your negative ambassador or positive ambassador. So I really like this example that Perry was giving about because it happens like all the time when the hiring manager during the first 5 minutes, he understands that candidate is a no, and they do like they either stop conversation or they behave like they're not interested. So that's a total no. You have to continue, use this opportunity to promote your company, to make this candidate your ambassador. So that's very important. And I really wanted to add one point to this whole candidate experience. What we do, for example, we look at the recruitment process together with the client and analyze and identify the touch points, like every touch point that candidate has with our company, because at every point he's making a decision whether to continue or not. And we even had candidates who dropped off the offer just the day he was going through onboarding because nobody met him at the company and he was just lost. So each and every point of contact is extremely important, especially when it comes to the process inside the company, because those candidates who are receiving the offers and getting through this onboarding process, they are like you said, like the funnels are huge, and those are the selected one. We spend a lot of time before to select them, to bring that to that point. So to losing them at the end, this is a huge loss for the company. So and another point that I wanted to add, like often companies are thinking about like how we present the position, how our hiring managers can address our employer brand to the targeted candidates, etc. But companies sometimes not thinking about this simple thing like speed, because this is also the selling point. Like if you're doing the recruitment process fast, you are like more competitive compared to the other companies that even maybe have better offers, etc. But you're just faster, and your processes, they are like smooth. And candidates looking at your processes, deciding that, the company is efficient and I really want to join the company, because recruitment process, that's how they analyze efficiency of the whole company, because this is just their touch point with the company. So that's what I wanted to add.
I remember a joke on one HR conference where people, recruitment manager said that my hiring manager asked me, please, could you freeze the candidates? But it was for IT company, and this is a real joke, a really misunderstanding the situation of the market. And I agree with you, the speed and efficiency is very, very important. At least if you need to, I need more time, you have to make a clear communication with your candidates about current situation, and some companies they make clear the first step on the employer branding steps. For example, I see that some career sites of some companies have clear understanding what is clear understanding of hiring process, which steps and how much time each steps will take. So for me, this is really great examples. We have one more questions with Natalia, and this is my questions first, and Natalia questions. I remember that Natalia asked me to add more spicy, maybe in the end of our meeting. But my questions, as we started from what global CIO as a global community of IT professionals is our partner, and my question: what do you think about IT community? Does it important for you as professionals, or is it important for you as a company representative for your company to become a part of IT community, to work with IT community, and what are the best ways to connect with IT community? Could you maybe do you have any examples, or maybe any ideas, or maybe you as IT professional could say what do you think about from perspective as IT professional?
Maybe one very recent example is with the emergence of AI, there are special interest groups or special groups formed around AI, and then discussion around it. And that is really great because there is a lot of exploration going on. No one knows actually the truth. So we figure out the way forward. If you go down to the individual contributor level, everybody or most of our people has an expertise or try to gain some sort of expertise. And then being part of these larger global communities is a blessing. When I started off as an engineer, the documentation that we found when searching the web was usually the documentation that we created for the specific framework. These days are over, right? The knowledge of the word is at your fingertip, and that brings so much value. There are these very global and implicit or virtual communities, but there is also value in more localized face-to-face communities. One of the best examples is when you talk about Amsterdam is the data science community. We have a very lively scene here, exchanging ideas, exchanging best in class knowledge. But it's also great for networking, finding your next talent pool. So I think it's fun for everyone, fun for the people that organize it. It's great for the industry because you get some sort of combination and synthesization of knowledge. And it's also very close in some extent to academia, where people has this pride and this very positive competition to create something cool and show it off. Having said that, there is also a balance, like in everything, that you can't just pull yourself to 1,000 pieces. So you have to be very deliberate about which of the groups that you want to be part of. Where do you take a little bit of a backseat? Where do you want to drive more, or in what time you want to drive for? But there is a balance to be found for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. I think on the community level, just say for instance, for like, in the profession of more employer brand, where it's a very niche but also important aspect of a lot of companies. And so a lot of the employer brand folks all talk to each other to make sure that we have like, hey, what's going on over here? How are you guys approaching these types of things? And then each one of us talk about how we do our community building as well. For like I was speaking about earlier, building our own kind of talent community of folks that have applied to us, but maybe didn't get a job, but we kind of keep them in that realm, and we still touch points with them. Hey, how's it going? What's going on in that aspect of it? The folks at, that are engineers and those stuff, they have their own mini communities and how they kind of operate as well. So some folks have their own, Discord. Some of them have their own kind of groups that they're doing. And then they have ones that are within our own. I mean, I think would say within the company, our employer resource groups operate that as well. It's like they kind of band different groups, different people from different departments together that kind of add to a community aspect of it. And so like a good example for that is recently, when was that recently? No, it's been the last couple of years, but we have Afrotech, which is a tech conference specifically for Black Americans, and it kind of focuses on that. At Snap, what we had done is as our ERG called Snap Noir, a lot of us are from different departments, and what we did was we all kind of went back to our heads and be like, hey, we want to go to this thing. We're all going to pitch some money into a bucket, and we're going to try to with that budget, we're going to try to do something that A, showcases the company, B, showcases the employees, and then C, fosters our community. And so we ended up doing it was in Austin, Texas, and so we have office there, which was awesome. So we were able to use that office to A, showcase the product. We talked about some of our products we had. We had another a mini we call it Snap School, where we teach people about creating lenses and being those creators. And then we just kind of had a meet and greet with people that were from the conference and Snap employees talking about Snap. And so all three of these things worked in tandem to show A, this is the community that was within Snap, and then B, people that were outside were like, oh wow, this is cool. You guys are all in different departments, and you guys are all coming together to foster something in an event that kind of works. And so people from the outside see that, and they also make it really, really cool. And in a point of bragging, we had a sweatsuit of a hoodie and sweatpants, which I got to design, and we all wore, and it looked really cool. So we got to touch a lot of different parts of community where folks got to see, oh, you guys actually like working here. You all work together. And then you're also doing it in a way under the brand that people can see. So it's not, it checks all the boxes of authenticity, transparency, and honesty. And then folks are kind of like, I didn't really realize that there was that many Black people here. Cool. Now I want to apply. And so that's how that all kind of comes together. And so even from that database, we've gone to Afrotech, I think the last 3 years. This recent one was in Houston, and they showcased our AR spectacles, and we kind of had some of a similar thing as well. But we have a database of everyone. We've collected emails and resumes from those events, and we still talk to them once every 2 quarters on some, hey, this is what Snap's up to from now. And so we have a nice database of, hey, these are all the people that we've talked to, and collected information from. And over the years, these are the people that actually got hired or interviewed and all that kind of stuff. And we can kind of show that ROI of like, hey, we spent a little bit of money here. This is the impact. And from that, we hired 3 or 4 people. So those little small community touches added well. And it was a cool thing to be a part of, but it was also cool to kind of show our higher ups that this is how you can collaborate within your company with your fellow team members, but also in a way that's fun and authentic, and it's, and it's cool too.
Super. Can I add? Yeah, just a little bit about the communities, because I see 2 interesting trends right now. So first trend is that earlier there were a lot of communities in IT for experts, like for coding, for like architecture, anything. But now I see more and more the trend when you see the communities of leaders, IT leaders, who communicate on like management experience and sharing the management experience. And that's, for example, what Global CIO is doing. So like how to hire people to the teams, how to build a strategy, etc., etc. So it's a little bit differently level. And also I see cross-functional communities. For example, that's also what we are trying to do, like combine on the one platform IT people and HR people, so that they can, like Cameron was saying, like be on the one page and see all the trends, all the problems of the company, all the solutions, like together from different perspectives and having the different experience. So that's just to add to the communities. And now it's my question, right?
Now it's your question that I added what you mentioned, community of ex-employees, and now it's also really very interesting trends because ex-employees, it's not only the people who could back, as Ferry mentioned, ex-employees could be boomerangs employees in the future, and also it could be people who could make referrals for you. And also that could be clients for you, as they mentioned about HR. It's also about marketing and sales. Natalia, and now it's time for your question.
Yeah, the last one, right?
Last
Okay.
one, yes.
So let's talk about the future. Really interesting, your opinion about the current trends. So, and especially what trends you think really important and will have a huge influence, and what trends are just hype, like local hype. So what do you see in your industries, like specifically for IT hiring?
Yeah, I think trends, I think especially in this climate that we're in, I think a lot of the trends that kind of still hold are still there, authenticity over tokenism, showing how you're approaching things like DEI and those aspects of it. And so especially when it comes to more on the tech side, I think as I was saying before, compensation always going to be a big thing, but on top of that, those things like I was saying earlier before, challenges and things that are, am I doing meaningful work? Do I actually want to go to work? Those aspects of it. I think a lot of the other the trends that's going to be more interesting is how you go about communicating that message. And so say, for instance, a lot of people were talking about AI as well. A lot of folks want to use AI and just use it because, if we're all in HR and talent acquisition space, every new company that comes into this space is like, I have AI XYZ. And so understanding that AI is not going anywhere, but also understanding that it's not the end all be all. And I think a lot of times the trend right now is AI. And I was actually talking to a bunch of students in my old art program, and they had tons of questions. They're still 2nd or 3rd year students, and they asked me like, is AI going to steal my job? And I'm like, no, AI is not going to steal your job. Someone that's mediocre using AI, they'll probably steal your job. And so, but having a better understanding of these trends and being mindful of them, but still sticking to your core values, how you like to message, how you're putting things out there. I think those are those things that will never kind of change. And so as those trends come in, I think that's why I always use AI as a good example, because literally everyone talks about it all the time. How are we doing it? But I think the trend of focusing on team members and employees like well-being and mental health and those things. That's a trend that I feel that's going to, which is a good thing to kind of stick and stay. I think 10 years ago, if you were getting hired yesterday and you got a harsh experience, you just assume that's what it was supposed to be. Where I think now, 10 years later, the trend is a lot more. People have a little bit more empathy. People are trying to be more human in how they do their hiring, how they do their firing, how they do their interview process. And that's a trend that I like, that I hope stays. And then lastly, I think just being more mindful and doing things in a way that's authentic. Like Frederick was saying, was just like, you can hop on all the latest of the TikToks and Lemonades and all these different like socials, but if that's not really your brand, you don't need to be there. You don't have to be on every single social platform. You can just do the ones that actually work for you. And really, like I was advising someone and I was kind of saying the same thing. I'm like, yo, if you're not into TikTok, then don't use TikTok. If you're not into whatever these types of different socials, then don't. If your audience isn't there, or you're the people that you want to attract in terms of hiring, is it in this platform, then you don't need to be on that platform. If they are, then be authentic about how you approach that, or make sure that you have the talent and the employer brand folks that understand that. And so I was in social media for a very long time, and since it actually, from the beginning of it being an actual job, so it's interesting to see all of these trends happen and companies trying to use the hip language and use the all the good slang and all that kind of stuff. And like, I'm older, I don't look it, but I'm a little bit older, Generation X. Thank you very much. But so I know what slang that I'm like, I'm not using that because that sounds silly, because it's not authentic to me. And if I say it and my company says it, where all of us is like, that looks silly. But for a lot of other companies, it actually is perfectly on brand for their employee base, who they're trying to attract and that kind of stuff. So I think the trends like well-being, mental health, and having more empathy and humans being more human about things, hopefully that stays. And then those other fly-by-night ones, how people use AI, how it's utilized, and those types of things. I know we've all been pitched by umpteenth number of AI-driven companies to, do something that we already do ourselves or we have someone else do. And so I think that's a one trend that I think is slowly going to die away as people start to realize how AI can be integrated into what your workflow is, and you use it as a tool as opposed to like replacing a whole human being or replacing a whole process. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Unfortunately, it was too good of an answer. I struggled to build on top, but I find it very funny when you mentioned AI. That was the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to hype. I don't think AI is hype or Gen AI is hype. It's fantastic, but the fear about Gen AI is a hype, and that has to go away. The other trends that besides well-being, besides having hygiene on compensation, these are all very excellent points that you made. Two things that I think will emerge, and that is be deliberate and transparent about your remote versus in-office hiring, because that's part of the culture that you can't fake. Also, that will divide the workforce. Some will be like really, some will be committed to hybrid, some will just in a phase or in a preference to come to the office, and that's a very quick filter. So just highlighting this information early in the hiring funnel, I think will go a very, very long way. That's number one. And the other one is the social cultural mission of the company. I was very happy to see, especially younger employers, be very, very conscious about which company to join. And companies that has either a dubious or a negative impact on society really struggle to hire the really top talent, which is limiting. And probably it's a good thing. It has a negative impact on this cancel culture, if you wish. So even if a company with the best intent and good goals might be framed or put in a negative light, and then it takes a while to really get back to the good graces of the employees or future employees. But that's the outlier.
Definitely. Don't be evil.
I think it's really great. It's really good. Don't be evil, and you could be more attractive, especially for Gen Z. And if you are, you could help people to become to make this world better. It's better for you as an employer. Ferry, Cameron, thanks a lot for participation in our podcast. Natalia, thanks a lot for co-host of this event. It was really pleasure for me to meet you. I hope first time, but not the least. I hope we could possibility to meet in the future, online, offline, and different countries, regions, cities. Because we, from one side, we live in a global world. From our side, now we have a lot of possibilities to meet each other and help each other to become better as a professionals, to get more and more knowledge. Thanks a lot. And this is podcast Happy at Work, and hope to see you in the future again with our guests in our podcast.